fastest show in sports.
For a moment, just a moment, I thought perhaps that I had been whisked away to another dimension. I thought perhaps that I might have been out running one day, maybe biking, and I fell and I hit my head, and something happened that I was transported to a magical realm where everything was different than what I expected, where everything was shocking in many ways. It just seemed like a dream when I heard that someone mentioned the possibility, the chance of Deion Sanders being considered as the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. What? What universe have we walked into? What dimension is this? I mean, look, I know that in Marvel Comics we're dealing in the multiverse coming up real soon, where there's so many universes where anything can happen. Maybe this is one of the universes. Maybe I got accidentally transported to universe 919. And all of a sudden I'm sitting here thinking that people believe that Deion Sanders deserves to be the head coach of a National Football League team. What the hell's wrong with you people? Do you want to be suckered again? This has unfortunately become one of the running stories of 2025 moving into 2026 is Deion Sanders. I have friends at the University of Colorado. I was very lucky. I got a chance to work in Denver for 4 years back in the late 90s, early aughts, before I went on to Boston. And I made great friends. I loved living out there. I got to tell you, I loved going to the games. I loved going to Boulder, seeing the games there. I was one of the few media guys that actually went there because, again, like in many other major markets, people don't pay a lot of attention to college football. And at that time, Colorado wasn't a team really worth paying a whole lot of attention to. Yeah, they were going to the bowl games every now and then. They were winding up there. But people looked at Colorado as, oh, okay, it's nice. They're cannon fodder in many ways. Yeah, they'll get into a bowl game every now and then. But for the most part, we can beat up on them and we can walk away. But that's not to say that I didn't have a great time there. I enjoyed the people there. I enjoyed the atmosphere that was there. But I knew that this was not going to become a national championship program the entire time I was there. And having been around college football for a long time up to that, I knew that there was no way this was ever going to be a top five, a consistent top five program. Anybody can get lucky every now and then, but they simply weren't going to be there. Along comes the change. I mean, we get to a point where money is starting to be spent, and somebody out of Colorado possibly just woke up one day in that multiverse universe and said, we got to do something here because I'm tired of getting crapped on every single season. So they go out and they buy into Deion Sanders. Look, can we talk? Deion's not a bad guy. He's an egomaniac. But then again, so are many people who are stars in the National Football League. He's got an overstuffed impression of himself, which again, a lot of people do in just about any sport whatsoever. And Deion believes that he is invincible. Again, a lot of people do, but he's not. I mean, Deion had been coaching before, but he hadn't coached at the major college level. There is a big difference here than coaching down in the FBS. Well, let's face it, I'm not denigrating the FBS in any way, shape, or form, or the HBCU, or any of those schools whatsoever. I'm not denigrating them, but I'm saying there is a big difference. When you step up from those schools into big-time college football, you got to be ready for it. Deion wasn't ready for it. But Colorado believed he was because it was the sizzle. They bought into the marketing. They got suckered. They believed that Deion Sanders could come in, whisk them into the championship discussion. You believe that? Do you? Come on. You're smarter than that. Because the hiring of Deion wasn't necessarily about winning football games. Sure, you want to win games. But Deion Sanders, putting his name on the program, are you kidding? Instant recognizability, instant credibility in so many people's eyes because you got Deion Sanders now to come in. He brings with it all the hoopla. And that's what they wanted. Because, quite frankly, you could still get tickets to a Colorado football game. You can now after Deion's last couple of disastrous seasons. But, I mean, there was a time it wasn't a problem to get a ticket there. They wanted to sell the place out. bingo, you got your chance. You bring in Deion and everybody wants to come in and see what he does. And at the beginning, as happens many times, there was a level of success, but there was also a level of national recognizability. And that was big for Colorado because that meant that they would be featured more in the national discussion. Some of their games might make the national networks. Some of their players might actually be seen as national. And again, that's part of bringing in Shedeur. Because out of all the success that he had with his dad elsewhere, they figured it would transfer. And it did for a short time. Other teams, other coaches, other players, they started to catch on. Shedeur is a hell of a college football player. But that's really where it stops. As we're seeing right now, he's not really good in the National Football League. He might one day be good. I mean, he might one day reach a certain level. But they wanted the name. They wanted the push. They wanted the value. They wanted the money. And I don't blame them. My friends in Colorado are going to see this. And I'm going to be excoriated. I'm going to get letters. I'm going to get phone calls. I've mentioned Colorado before, and I've already been taken to task several times, telling me that you're all wrong, Ed. You're all wrong. How can you do that? You were here for a while. How can you just go ahead and spit on this program? Look, guys, I'm only being honest. You were suckered by Neon Deion. When you have, and in the last several months, couple months, when you have more than 24 of your players, 24 plus players, have left the program and have decided to go someplace else, what does that tell you? They don't want to play for Deion. They don't want to play for Colorado. They don't like the program. They don't think they're getting a fair shake. They don't think they're going to win. They don't think they're going to make any money. They don't think they're going to make any money. They don't think they're going to make any money. It's what college football has become. The luster is off Deion Sanders at this point. I said this a long time ago, and I'm going to say it again. The only reason Sanders took the job at Colorado is he wanted to burnish up his reputation. He wanted to get some easy wins. He wanted to get some national notoriety as a success so he could then move on to the National Football League. And in another universe somewhere, in the last couple of weeks, I've seen people guess that Deion might become the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it gets funnier with every single rumor. Of course, none of this comes from anybody who knows what the hell they're talking about. It's all basic social media bullshit, but it's fun to listen to. Deion has not done nearly enough to make anybody think that he can be a successful head coach in the National Football League. Does he know the NFL? Sure. You can't take that away from him. The guy's a superstar. The guy's a Hall of Famer. He knows the National Football League. But there's a difference sometimes between playing and coaching. He's not a good coach. Basically, at Colorado, he did very little coaching. He handed it off to his assistants. And he put the wrong assistants on the program as well because they started to falter. They weren't getting it done. He's handing it off, and they're not making the right choices. And as the head coach, you got to every now and then step in and say, that's it, buck stops here. Deion can't do that because he's not that good a coach. He's not that kind of a coach. He's the delegation coach that basically lets somebody else do it and then either takes credit for it or gives them credit. I'll give this much to Sanders. In a lot of his post-game press conferences, which were really kind of silly in many cases because he was like a certain president that you ask him about the offense and he wanders into what happened when the Buffalo took a crap in the end zone. I mean, he talks about just about anything else because he wants to get away from the fact that he's not getting it done, his coaches aren't getting it done, his players aren't getting it done. He wants to divert you from talking about the negatives. But there are times he's given his coaches and his players some chops, which is good. He doesn't sit there and just take a dump on them at all times. But he's got nowhere to go now. Okay? Colorado has got to make a decision, and they've got the right people in place now to make the decision. Do you really want to put up with the possibility again of another down season with all these players leaving? Because now Sanders is looking at a rebuild again. And is Deion Sanders the guy who can rebuild it? Is Deion Sanders the guy? And he's got, let's be fair, he's going to get some players in the portal. They're going to come in. They're going to want to play because they see openings there. They see a possibility. And there's some who are going to want to play for Sanders. But to consistently win with Deion Sanders, it's not going to happen. Listen, Colorado, you're not going to win a conference championship. You're not going to contend for a national championship. You're going to have success. You're going to have your 8, 9, maybe 10 win seasons. But you're not going to go any further than that. Not with Deion Sanders. You need a real football coach. You need to trade in the glitz and the glamour and all of the Hollywood, and you got to get somebody who brings in a winning attitude. Deion hasn't brought in a winning attitude. There's a lot of excuses going on there right now, which then brings us to the thinking of Sanders becoming let me see. Becoming a head coach. I'm sorry, I can't say it without laughing. I'll try. Becoming a head coaching candidate with the Cleveland Browns. Really? Come on. I mean, his kid is there. What do you think? He's going to step in and make his kid an all-pro all of a sudden? He's going to make him one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? It's not going to happen. Cleveland's got its own problems right now. I mean, look, Kevin Stefanski was a hell of a coach for a few seasons. I mean, yeah, he's had some bad times recently, but this guy was an award-winning coach, was a notable coach who was winning. There's got to be a bigger problem there. They're not bringing in the personnel. They don't have the right people. They don't have the right leadership, if you will. Stefanski, I believe, just got caught up in a lot of the Shedeur Sanders nonsense this year. He got caught without having a quarterback. He thought he had a quarterback. Then he didn't have a quarterback. Then he had a veteran. Then he lost him. Then he had a guy that he could groom. Then he lost him. And then he was left basically with the remnants in Shedeur Sanders. And now they're talking about Deshaun Watson coming back and being the number. There's already talk that Deshaun Watson could be the number one quarterback or will be the number one quarterback for the Browns next season. And you want Deion to be the guy to coach him? Come on. It's not going to work. Cleveland needs to get somebody who is a good, solid, innovative head coach. That's not Deion. Colorado, I hate to say this. Go ahead. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. If the people of Colorado, if you're that upset, write me. Go ahead. fastestshowinsports@gmail.com. I'll feature the answers here. Maybe I'll even go out and I'll get somebody on the show to talk about it. Because I like the university. They're good people out there. I love Denver. I love Colorado. I'd love to be living there full time. I'd love to go see all the games out there. I love the place. But you're not going to really get much with Deion for another season. They're not going to fire him. Deion might leave, but they're not going to fire him. They're going to keep him at least another season, maybe two. I mean, do you really want to wallow in mediocrity again? I don't think that's fair. I think you've taken a step up and the program is going to get better. I mean, maybe, but not much. You're not going to compete on the national level just yet. And Sanders is not the guy to take you to the national level. And certainly a lot of the players don't believe that either. So it's unfair to continue to hold on to this dream that Deion is going to be the miracle that will save Colorado, because it's not going to happen. And for Deion, I wish him well. Look, the guy never stole a freight train as far as I know. Wherever he goes, I have nothing against him. I've spoken out against his kid. I've talked about him honestly. I've talked about Deion honestly. But I don't think you're going to find another college that's going to line up and say, you know, if Deion Sanders gets loose at Colorado, we're going to go after him. We need to get him in here. I don't hear any of that. There's not any of that whatsoever. You will hear, if you get your ear to the ground in college football, you'll hear a lot of the talk. And people will be going, this is a hot coach. This is somebody that we want to look at. This is a next step for us. Deion's not the next step for anybody right now. If Deion wants to be a coach in the NFL, his best route is take what he's got. Go be an assistant in the NFL. Be an assistant. But here's the next thing. I don't hear anybody who's clamoring to have Deion Sanders on their staff because they know he's got a massive, wide ego. And you bring him on the staff and you make him a subordinate when he's been a head coach in college, She's not going to like that. He's going to want to be the head guy. And if he's not, there's going to be all kinds of junk and nonsense that's going to happen underneath it. And Deion is going to be at the core of it. Because granted, he seems to be a nice guy at times, but there's other times when that ego gets in the way. And it's going to happen with Sanders. So where does he go from here? If he stays at Colorado, that's fine. Maybe he becomes a better coach. But let's stop fooling yourself, Colorado. And Cleveland, don't fool yourself either. And everybody else, look, you might love the guy because of what he did in the NFL, but stop fooling yourself. Deion Sanders is not an upper echelon coach in college football. He hasn't earned the right to be it in the National Football League. And therefore, maybe he's just got to be satisfied sitting out and watching his son cash checks. But he is not, should not be the head coach at any NFL team.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.